1260 KDUZ News, I'm Mark Wodarczyk. A Sauk Rapids woman was killed Wednesday when the motorcycle she was on collided with a deer. 47-year-old Laura Ann 1040 Barron died at the scene of the crash at Stearns County Road 155 south of 355th Street in Avon Township. Stearns County Sheriff John Sanders says she was a passenger on the motorcycle that was traveling north on County Road 155 when it struck a deer just before 8 p.m. Motorcycle driven by 49-year-old David Barron of Sauk Rapids. He was taken to St. Cloud Hospital, where he was listed in critical condition. Neither was wearing a helmet. Deer and motorcycles are proving to be a deadly combination on Minnesota roads. Officials say 5 people have died so far this season in deer cycle crashes. Safety experts say there are actions riders can take to lessen the chances of fatal results.
If you do impact the deer, keep your head and eyes up. Keep looking down the road. I've actually talked to several riders who've had deer strikes and kept their motorcycle up, and the key for them was keeping their head and eyes up, continuing to look down the road.
State safety expert Bill Schaefer says deer are on the move this time of year and are a special hazard after dark. He says deer cycle crashes on Minnesota roads have risen in recent years. Minnesota Department of Transportation Commissioner Tom Sorrell is asking all Minnesota motorists to approach work zones with care and keep safety uppermost in mind when driving following a work zone crash on I-94 near Highway 280 in St. Paul, in which workers were injured when an automobile ran into a construction vehicle on the side of the road. Sorrell says there are thousands of workers on our state and local roadways every day who are working to improve the transportation system, and they deserve to be safe. Sheriff's officials say a 15-year-old boy has died in Chisago County after he was hit by a bullet while handling a gun. The shooting happened at a home in Center City last night, northeast of Forest Lake. Investigators say the gun handled by the teen discharged and a bullet hit him in the neck. Authorities say a 16-year-old friend was with the boy at the time of the shooting. The 16-year-old was questioned and released to his parents. The Department of Natural Resources is lifting the remaining campfire restrictions in northeastern Minnesota today.
The DNR says recent rains, cool weather, and higher evening humidity are making it less likely for campfires to cause a wildfire in that part of Minnesota. Lifting the restrictions means campfires were allowed across the state starting at 12:01 a.m. today, although campfires will once again be allowed any time of the day and will no longer be restricted to resorts or campgrounds. The DNR still urges people to be careful with campfires. Abby Pop reporting.
Thursday's gusty winds kept firefighting to a minimum in the northern part where that wildfire is burning of Minnesota, and cool wet weather kept the flames from spreading. Public Information Officer Larry Helmerich.
The moisture helped and the cooler weather helped, of course. We're supposedly going to be having an extended drying spell for a number of days, and we'll be able to make some good progress.
Helmerich says crews stayed off lakes and away from trees yesterday because of the winds. Today, he says they will return to fire areas that have not been contained. Officials tallying the cost of fighting the widespread wildfire in the Boundary Waters Canoe area of northeastern Minnesota say expenses have topped $12 million. The size of the fire down slightly to nearly 145 square miles after remaining relatively the same size for more than a week. Fire departments in southern Minnesota had their hands full as gusty winds whipped up flames through dried corn and soybean fields. At least a half dozen field fires were reported early yesterday afternoon in Martin County. One blaze destroyed 2 chicken coops and a grain bin. About 9,000 turkeys headed for market next week have been killed in a barn fire near Pelican Rapids. Authorities say an electrical problem might have sparked the fire. Officials estimate the losses could total $750,000. The final list just came out, and 9 Minnesota school districts have bond referendums before voters on November 8th for new buildings and or upgrades. Bill Werner reports.
The highest dollar bond referendum is Thief River Falls at $54 million for energy conservation, maintenance, and alternative facilities, followed by Owatonna at just under $24 million, and then West Tonka with slightly less than that. In addition, 11 school districts in Minnesota will ask their voters to increase property taxes for leasing technology and similar services. The largest request in Greater Minnesota, $7.5 million in the Northfield School District. Earlier this week, voters in Alexandria approved $65 million for a new high school. Bill Werner reporting.
The Watertown Mayor's School Board voted unanimously at a special session recently to reduce their request for a $680 per pupil operating levy to $500 per pupil. The request for the $500 operating levy will be left up to voters in a referendum to be held on November 8th. The Carver County News reports the board originally had set the levy amount at $680 per pupil during a special meeting on July 18th, but reduced the number after the school district learned of some anticipated, or rather unanticipated, aid that it would receive from the state over the next 2 years. The president's party is not fired up just yet, and Newt Gingrich is out with a new pledge. ABC's Brad Wheelis reports.
Focus on the White House. The latest Gallup poll shows Democrats are less enthusiastic about voting than ever before, a whopping 44% of them. It's one reason President Obama is trying to court his base. ABC News White House correspondent Ann Compton.
This weekend, Brad, President Obama has another political base to soothe. The Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Campaign holds a big Saturday night banquet, and he wants to remind members he's now kept his promise to allow gays to serve in the military, even though he has failed to repeal the law that bans same-sex marriage.
And more worrisome for the president, nearly 6 in 10 Republicans polled say they are more enthusiastic about voting. The man who found success in Congress with his Contract for America is out with a 2.0 version. Republican presidential candidate and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich.
We need to repeal Obamacare, and we need to develop a common-sense replacement for it.
Gingrich says he also wants to control the border by January 1st, 2014. Brad Wheelis, ABC News.
Just a few more hours and September will be in the record books. The weather data show that the month will stand out in one important area.
September 2011 will wind up being one of the driest Septembers on record. A lot of places are from about 1.5 to 2.5 inches below normal for the month. We just couldn't quite get any really good storm systems through the state to drop any appreciable rain.
Climatologist Pete Boulay, just 0.3 of an inch of rain recorded at our studios here in Hutchinson in September. Boulay says there was a wide swing in temperatures during the month. The first half was warm with some days in the 90s. Then frost moved in, effectively ending the growing season. The Department of Natural Resources is offering about 100 hunters refunds on their highly coveted moose permits. The Pagami Creek fire east of Ely has kept hunters from scouting the area ahead of the season that opens Saturday. Hunters who win permits normally don't get to apply again whether they get a moose or not. 11 local schools celebrating homecoming this week: Atwater, Cosmos, Grove City, Annandale, Gibbon, Fairfax, Winthrop, Holy Family Catholic, Holy Trinity,